Hi guys, welcome to another video. And this video won't contain any intermediate or advanced topic. This will be video will be a very beginner friendly topic. Uh, in this video, we'll talk about 10 basic React terminologies, concept topics that every new developer should know. Okay. The first topic that I want to talk about is the topic of components. Okay. Uh, React for React components are basically the building blocks. Think of it as Legos, right? Legos contain small materials. Those materials make up for the React component. For example, uh, if I have to create a component, something like H1, hello, H1 component. Yeah. So this is basically an example of a component. Okay. The second term that I want to talk about is JSX. JSX is basically a syntax extension for JavaScript. Uh, JSX helps in visualizing the UI. For example, this thing is basically JSX. React never understands JSX, it converts it into JavaScript under the hood. For example, this thing will be converted like React dot create element h1 null and hello. So as you can see, this thing is much easier to understand what we want to write rather than this whole React dot create element. So that's why we prefer writing JSX. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk about is the concept of props. Uh, Basically, these are function arguments that gets passed in components. For example, here, if I write props and I write props dot name, and here will be name next term. So this thing name is basically a prop. Props helps us in the flow of data between different components. These are also read only. Okay, you can't change them. Uh, the next thing is state. States are very important. Alright, states are basically the data that can change in components, and whenever they change, there is a new re-rendering. For example, if I have to create a state, something like, let's name it state only, set state, new state, let's put 0. Okay, and let's create a very demo button, very small button, and on the on click of it, what will happen is set state to 5. Okay, and here p1 the value of state, and sorry, p, yeah. So whenever I click on this very small button, you can see the value gets changed to 5. This is basically a state, the value that can change. Okay. The next concept is the concept of hooks. Uh, Hooks are basically very special functions that helps us in doing specific tasks in React. These are provided by React only. This use state is basically a function from React, and it is actually a hook that helps us in changing a state. Okay, hooks, there are many different kinds of hooks. There is this use state, then there's also use effect. Use effect is also very common and very important. It helps us in fetching data, it helps us in doing side effects. Okay, then there is use ref, use layout effect, and there are many more. Okay, the next concept is the concept of state management. Okay, we have understood state, right? We have checked a way to change data or state as well. Now let's understand the concept of state management. This is basically a very complex thing, but to give you an idea, It's basically like keeping your data and your UI in sync with together. Okay. When the project gets very complex, it gets very hard to manage everything. So their state management has a very, very crucial role, and we use many different methods to do it. We use context, we use global state libraries like Redux or the Stack. Their state management is very different and very helpful. And but to give you a little context, state management is basically keeping your data and your UI in sync with together. Okay. The next concept is event handling. We have just done event handling. Uh, Events are basically whatever things that we can do across a screen. For example, clicking on this button. This is basically an event, and handling it is event handling. On click here is our event handling. Okay, I have written the definition as basically reacting to different events that occur within an application, like clicking on a button, typing in a text field. Okay. The next is the concept of DOM. Uh, for example, as you can see, well, should I remove? Okay, I'll remove this all thing. And this is our current React component. Okay, with a div within H1. Okay, and DOM is basically document object model. Uh, this is basically a tree structure of a React component. For example, this thing gets converted into something like a document, document to div, div gets converted to our h1, and h1 has our sorry, h1 has our hello. Okay, this is basically a structure that get created in our DOM, document object model. Uh, okay, now there is one more concept. Addition to this is the concept of vir- virtual DOM. Okay, we'll just extend this concept. Whenever there's a rendering happening, what really happens is you can't directly change the DOM because it is a very slow operation. So React never really changes the DOM directly. What it does is basically I have to duplicate it as well. Yeah. So if I have to change the value of hello to hi, right? What will happen is React will create a virtual DOM, something like this, and then it will change the node of whatever component data has been changed. For example, hello to hi. What will happen is React will now compare between the real DOM and our virtual DOM, and then it will check which node is getting changed. So here, this is getting changed, right? So it will only change that specific node, and it won't change the whole document DOM. So this thing is called a reconciliation. It's a bit uh, intermediate concept, but I wanted to give you a context about DOM and virtual DOM and how React re-renders. So this is how this whole thing works. Okay. The next concept uh, is the oh yeah, component life cycle. Okay, one thing I want to tell you guys is that usually two types of how we write components. There is functional components and there is class component. Uh, so now we prefer functional components because it is better to understand, and with the help of hooks it is able to do everything what class components can do. Okay. Now, in component lifecycle is basically when a React component is created, updates, and ends. For example, if I have to show you how component gets created, so mounted data. So I have to import it. Yeah. So this is how basically component gets mounted and gets unmounted. Okay, this is how whenever I'll close the app or a website, it gets unmounted. So this is basically a component's life cycle. Okay, I'll get into the detail of it in the next video, but you just need to get a bit of context is what a component life cycle is. Okay, so these are basically our 10 concepts that you should know, and these all are individually very complex. But yeah, you guys should know if someone asks you what's a state management, then you should know. Okay. So thank you guys for watching. We'll get into the depth of each one of it later. But yeah, thank you. Bye bye.